Well, thanks guys for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to click the bell so you'll get notifications for the follow-up videos. And give me a like and share with a friend. Thank you so much. Let's get started. Hey guys, we're fixing to start on the arms and the head of the robot, and then we're going to do some etching. What I've got here is a piece of 1/2-inch gray glass, and I've covered it with vinyl on both sides. And the reason for that is when I go to the saw to cut it, the bottom piece of vinyl will protect the glass from getting scratched, and the top piece allows me to draw my lines to follow with the blade. And here I've done the same thing with the piece of Starfire crystal. So we're going to cut off these two pieces here that'll make part of the head. And then here's an arm left over from another robot I did at the same time I did this first one. And we're going to use it to cut out our two arms out of what's left of this piece of glass. This is just something I had left over. So anyway, that's it. We're going to go to the saw and we're going to do a little cutting. Alright, now this saw is loud, and so I'm going to wear ear plugs or earmuffs or whatever these things are called, and you guys are just going to have to suffer through. Okay, here we go. We're going to crank this thing up. I apologize for the loudness. Okay, so these three pieces that we cut out, the clear, the bronze, and the clear, we're going to glue that together to make the head, and then we're going to cut the head out, cut it out as one piece. It should make for nicer seams in the middle here. And this cutoff here is enough to do the two arms. So I forgot, I got to split that. So let me do that real quick. We'll be ready to go on to something. Okay, here's the glass after it's been cut out. You can see the sawed edge on both sides. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ground this round and then put our claw on the other end, and we're also going to cut this in the middle. We're going to snap it at the elbow and grind it to put a bend in the arm. And this is going to be the head. We'll take the 1/2-inch gray, and we're going to put it right on top of there, and then we're going to grab the other Starfire, and then we're going to glue it up. And then when we saw that as one surface, it will be a better joint in the long run, and I won't have to grind as much glass off. Alrighty, we're going to glue these three pieces of glass together. That's going to make the head of the robot. And let's see here. Now, because we are trying to get light to the glue to cure it up, we want to put the colored piece on the bottom. So we're going to go stick that together. Let's do that. Put down the glue. Alrighty. Let all that excess glue just run off the sides. So anyway, bring that in a little closer. Well, that's cured up. So, because we have to put the dark side down, now look at this, I've glued myself to my paper. Now that's okay because it's just paper, but if I had had that sitting on glass or plate of steel or something, it would have been lost. Would have been permanently attached and impossible to remove without ruining it. So let's get this glue and paper off. Get that good and clean, because I tell you the truth, if you've got any tiny little particle of something between your two surfaces, you might get it stuck together, but it won't last. It will not be permanent. Whereas in a best case scenario, this glue is pretty darn permanent. Now, I haven't had to test it under extreme outdoor conditions, but when I first discovered this glue, I took a chance. I glued two pieces of glass together and threw it in my aquarium, not knowing if it would poison the aquarium, poison my fish, poison the aquarium, throw the whole thing away. Well, nobody died, and that thing sat in there for months and never came apart. So I said, okay, I'm going to start doing paid projects with this stuff. Okay, let me just do a quick little dusting on this piece right here, this other piece, which is going to go on top there. Wipe off that which I just resprayed on. Okay, here we go again. Dun, dun. You always throw away more glue than remains in the job, which is unfortunate because it's kind of pricey. Okay, now we're going to touch down, squeeze out a bunch of our excess. Start this up, get back on it and position it before it locks up. Oop, I can already feel it starting to catch. Okay, here's the glass we're going to make the head out of. I've got 1/2 inch gray and 1/2 inch Starfire on both sides of the gray. And I've got my first line marked. I'm going to cut it, and then I'll use the square to make the other marks and cut. So we're going to cut out the basic shape of the head. when the blade cuts, it leaves these little chips along here on the edge. But because these were glued together, it acted more like a single piece of glass, and there are no chips. Or if there are, they're only the result of a bad glue job. So anyway, oftentimes you want to glue some things together first before you saw them. It's going to save me a lot of time. Okay, hey, I've got pieces ready to go. Now here's the head that I sawed on, and that saw blade really leaves a nice surface. I mean, that's amazing. Now, a lot of times you'll have something like this going on, something that's sticking up that has to be ground down, but that goes away real fast. It's these large scratches over a larger area that tend to slow you down. Now, you know, you've seen the lap wheel, and it's 24 inches in diameter. I've got an 8-inch lap wheel that we're going to use to grind and polish these little pieces here. And, you know, I can do these on the big one, but the big machine is a lot hungrier, and sometimes when you've got little work, you want something that's not so aggressive. And so we'll use that just to show the machine, really. And then we've got the arms here that are cut out. Now what I've done is I've stuck vinyl on here and then cut my radius. So I'm going to grind against that and give myself the shape, the shoulder of the arm. And then we'll finish off these edges and roll all of the edges just a little bit. I think that'll look nice for these guys. But anyway, we're going to get on the big wheel and work on that first. This bad bump to get rid of. Okay, now we're going to grind these corners, make it round. We'll work up against this board so we stay at 90 degrees. Get out of the way here. Whoa! Okay, now we're going to use this mini lap wheel to do these smaller pieces. So I've got my 8-inch 320 grit diamond pad or diamond disc, and we need to get water dripping on it. Then we turn it on. And this is a much gentler machine. Now we're going to change the disc. Stop dripping. There we go. Take the 8-inch 320 grit off and then replace it with the rubber wheel that's got 325 grit embedded in the rubber. And even though it's kind of a hard rubber, the microscopic give that it has makes a difference when it comes to smoothing. Okay, get in here and we're gonna, you see it's kind of rough, we're gonna smooth that out quite a bit with this disc. Ready for polish. Here's just a couple of the pieces, and what we're going to do is this is going to be our pre-polish. Even though that's a pretty decent surface, we're going to do a pre-polish. We're going to round all of these edges just a little bit. Same with the arms. I'm going to put a bigger round on these corners, but just a small round on everything else, all the edges. So anyway. Work on that. Step is to polish. All right, now here are the pieces we just finished. The head consists of a piece of 1/2" gray with 2 pieces of 1/2" Starfire crystal, front and back, so it's sandwiched in there. And then the 2 arms are there, and a back plate for the robot's upper torso, and a front plate for the robot's upper torso. And what we're going to do is these arms, we're going to cut each one of them, and grind a miter, a slight miter, so that it appears to be sort of the elbow joint of the arm. We could leave it straight. That would be pretty consistent with the old tins that we're imitating with this retro robot. However, I just think the bend is worth the work and just makes it look that much more interesting. And I've got some magnets coming in the mail, and hopefully I'll have the arms finished by then, and those magnets are going to be our hinges for the arms and for the head. But we've also got a whole lot of detail to etch into the robot. Various components of each part will have some etch detail, and it'll make a lot of difference in the overall appearance. But anyway, that's where we are for right now. One detail I forgot to mention. I said I was going to put a rounded edge on these arms, and I changed my mind. I decided to do a chamfer, and so I don't know if you can see it. Again, lighting the glass so that it photographs well is very difficult to get just the right, but we put a tiny miter or a chamfer on all the edges instead of rounding them. Now I rounded these corners and of course rounded the shoulder of the arm, but as far as getting rid of our little clamshells along these edges here, I did a chamfer instead of a bullnose. So I think in the long run that'll be more interesting. So there we go. I was about to glue this chest plate onto the robot and I discovered that it had a scratch. I don't know if you can see it. I have marked its location, but because I've already done the half bullnose and polished it, I'm going to polish the scratch out rather than make another one. So hopefully this won't take very long. I have to keep moving when I'm polishing scratches, otherwise the irregularities in the wheel will actually polish little ridges into your glass. Not the worst thing, but it's not perfect. Okay, I think that's just about done. Okay, so we're going to clean that piece of glass that we just polished the scratches out of. And make darn sure that the side we're gluing on is clean. Okay, clean this again. Okay, let's see, we're going to put it down right about there. So, let's see here, see if I want to turn it around. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna, usually I put the glue on the big piece first and then bring the little piece to it. But I think that I'm gonna actually apply the glue to the small piece and then flip it over real quick. Okay. And we'll flip it over. Okay, now this is going to be a little tricky. I'll just kind of hold this to get it started. Once it kind of sticks, I can let go of it. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing with this little back plate here on the drawing. Let's see if we can see this. Here's the back plate. There it is. And there's the front plate we just put on. And so we're going to glue that on here. Okay. Flip it over and touch it down. All right, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to split these arms, and the reason I went ahead and sawed it and ground it and polished it as a single piece is when I put these two pieces back, I want them to have the same thickness on either side. Interestingly enough, glass is not uniformly thick. You have a big enough piece, you can measure one end, measure the other end, they won't be the same thickness. So anyway, as I break these, grind them, and then put them back together, I want them to be more uniform. So anyway, we're going to decide where this, like this is the shoulder, the claw will be here, and then we're going to have a split where we'll have a little elbow bend. So, let me see here, we've got like 3.5. So 1 3/4 ought to be about right. 1 3/4. 1 5/8. I think that's going to be better. So let's measure these. 1 5/8. How do I feel about that? Yeah, why not? 1 5/8. So, I'm going to make a score. Oops, I need a square. Where is my square? There we go. So, oh, you gotta push down real hard. I saw my hand wiggle on that. That's not good, but hopefully we'll be okay. Looks about right. Okay. Now, these are, it's hard to break 1/2 inch glass by hand, so we're going to use the breaker here. And so I'll get my mark. Now this is going to put some pressure on it. That looks pretty good. Okay, put that over there. Now we're going to do the same thing again. There we go. Alright, and those broke fairly square. There's always going to be some flare. Can't get away from that. But okay, let's make sure these are turned the right way. Okay, now these guys are going to go together back the same way they were. So I've got to mark my glass. Now when I go to grind on these, the water will make the Sharpie come off. So I'm going to put a piece of vinyl or something on there that isn't as quick to come off. And that way I can be sure to put these guys back the way they belong. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to grind our arms, our robot arms. We're going to grind them at an angle so that the arm has an elbow, and it's boop, bent at an elbow. So let's start up the machine and start doing that. lines here so that I can kind of eyeball and register how far I'm going with this and at what angle. Okay, that looks pretty good. That was the last of the 4 pieces. Awesome. Okay, now we've got the pieces ground, and we'll glue them together, and that will put a slight bend in the arm of the robot, which I think is worth it. I have to use a very fine wheel when I do something like this so it doesn't throw clams off of the edge here, and that makes it slow work. Even though we're only taking off this little bit, when you're using like a 350 grit wheel or disc, it just seems like it takes forever. And it's cold, and that means the water's cold, and my knuckles are old, which means they're cranky. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a very satisfying thing to get a nice smooth surface with no clams running along these edges here. And let me just put a quick wipe on the gluing surface here. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, so put it down here like this. That's about all we're going to need. Pick it up, touch it down. I'm doing this on a piece of glass to give me a flat level surface. And then I put this material down here so if it glues to the glass, I can get that off. Whereas if I accidentally glued these 2 pieces of glass to this piece of glass, it'd be ruined. There we go. Let these finish curing out, and we'll be ready to go to the next thing. All right, here the arms are assembled, and you can tell that I did a little grinding and polishing on the elbow here. I didn't want to point there, so I just kind of smoothed it out and then polished it, and you can see the joint, but to the touch, this may be a couple of the best joints I've ever done. You can almost not feel anything as you slide your fingers across those joints. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So now we need to make claws and shoulders and a neck for our robot. All right, now as we look at the drawing, we can see that we have the shoulder that attaches the arm to the body, either side, and another glass rod that will make up the neck. So I've got to cut these glass rods, and so I've marked them with a Sharpie at their distances. The good news is that these rods that I've ordered, the ends are nice and square, so I don't have to grind 2 surfaces to square them up. So I'll just make one cut here, grind one side only. I might go ahead and put a pre-polish on here, but the ends look real good, and that goes for the larger diameter here. Got it marked and ready to go. So let's take it to the saw. I'm going to try to use the little saw. Haven't used it in a while, and see how it performs. I put a new blade on it, and I'm going to try it out. One important thing about sawing is when the saw blade goes through something, when it exits the other end, it always knocks a chip off. Always. And never where you want it. It's very frustrating. So when you're cutting round things, it's better to just cut all the way around and start cutting the center. And then when it breaks off, you'll have a little divot in the middle, but you can grind that off and it'll come off pretty quickly. Let's see here. I think I need to adjust this a little bit. Let me double check. Yeah, I've got it set just a little long. Let's see here. Okay, let's try that. Okay, that's better. Okay. Now this is a lot like the other saw. It's still a little noisy, but not as bad as the other. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's do the other one. Okay. You know, I don't think I've ever shown anybody this before on video. I'm going to compare tools for just a second. We've got the diamond saw over here, or the tile saw, and it's got a blade that's geared for glass. It's a diamond blade, and its life will extend up to this point right here. Once we start getting right here, it's time to throw it away, and it lasts quite a while, and that's pretty cool. But then we come over here for the miniature version, and this is an old thing. I found this on eBay, and I don't know exactly what year it is, but it's been around a while, and so I just refurbished it, put new bearings in it, and so it's got a water reservoir down in here, and then the saw is very thin, which I love. So anyway, then we've got the lap wheel, which you are familiar with by now, and that's a 24-inch lap wheel, and it's originally designed for stonework, but the discs that I purchased are made for glass work. And then its miniature version over here, you saw me using that a short while ago. I've got a little polishing disc on it there, but I don't really like the polishing disc on this one because it's so small. You're not really generating that much speed. However, with all the other grits, you don't need all that much speed to sort of, you know, get some work done. So anyway, there's that. Thought you might be interested. Let's move on. All right, we're gonna make my stencils to do the detail on the robot. So what we got here is my homemade film positive, and this is the detail that's going to be etched or carved on different parts of the robot. So I've got to make the stencils. So we're going to use photoresist to do that. So anyway, I roll off some film. That back in this moisture tight container. We put the film in here, and we put the film positive on top of it. expose it for a minute. Okay. Okay, that'll stop any moment. There we go. Wow. It's getting harder and harder to take off. Set that aside. Now I'm going to peel this film off to allow the water to get to it, and the water will wash out the detail that was not exposed to the light. It looks like it's washed out, but I'm going to double check it. That's it. That's it. So, bleed this off real quick. Okay. Now I will take this to the drying tool and we will let this thing set up. Make sure I got every dot. Okay, that's in the dryer and we'll have to wait. We have just finished drying the stencil. This is it from the front. This is the back side, the surface that will stick to the glass. I will cut each one of these out. Oh, I've barely got enough backing paper here to... Okay, that's all right. Everything important has a place to touch down. Okay, so now I'm going to cut all these out, and these will make my individual stencils. Okay, so here we've got all of our stencils. That goes on the bottom front of the body. This goes on the sides. And we're going to get this rivet detail and grill. Now, when I go to carve this section down, I'm going to put a screen in front of it, which will give me a pattern. Whatever screen I choose, it'll be that'll be the pattern that I get. So anyway. Okay, now we start to apply the photoresist stencils to the various parts of the body. And we just need to put one final wipe, make sure we are dust free and clean so that these things will stick properly. Okay, now normally I don't stick it down just this way, but that may be good enough. So we burnish it down. You got to be careful if you just go whoop, whoop like this, you're going to be scratching your glass. So you don't really want to stroll off of the stencil as you're rubbing it down. Now, there we go. I don't know if you can see that, but that little area came up there, and I grab it and gently, don't pull too fast. Sometimes you'll pull your stencil loose.
We're
So
gonna
move on to another. Let's see here. Like this area. That's going to be a pretty tight fit. All right. Well, now that we've got the stencils on, I'm going to have to go in and mask off all the areas that are exposed around the stencils so that we don't inadvertently etch or carve parts that we don't want to etch. All right. That's it for now. All right, now I have got all of the bare glass areas covered with tape so that when I sandblast the detail in this photoresist, I won't inadvertently etch stuff that shouldn't be etched. So all we've got is tape and photoresist showing. And let's see here, we got the head, same thing. There's the mouth and the ears, and everything else is masked off. So it's ready to go in the sandblast booth, and we'll get that detail etched. Okay, now we're going to spray a little gold paint into all the etched areas. All right, now we've got our robot. It looks interesting even like this, covered in paint and tape. Well, we're going to strip this stuff off, and it's very tedious, and I find it's faster than trying to reverse everything. Just start cutting away at the corners, and then just peel the resist off as a single layer of stuff. Not much to say about this. It's just tedious. You just have to do it and get through it. So I'm gonna pause the camera and finish this up, and then we'll take a look at it. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. Thought we had a bad spot. Nope, no bad spot. Thank goodness. Okay, here it is all cleaned up. We got the tape off, and so now we got some really cool details, and there's more to come. We're gonna glue a couple of hemispheres here and on the other side as well, and on the shoulder of the robot, but we've also got to, we're gonna put on shoulders, arm, and then the claw. So these were cut out of a little tube and then ground to sort of improvise a claw. And so anyway, that's that. And we're going to glue the feet on the bottom. I should have done this earlier, but as it turns out, I didn't. So I've got to glue the feet on to the robot right now. So we're going to turn it up like this, and then put, oops, where are they? There they are. So we're going to glue them on, and then the robot will stand above his wire. And then I'm gonna, after they're on, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'm gonna take it to the lap wheel, and I'm gonna grind a little flat spot to put my little rubber bump-ons, which are going to make this a soft, gentle sit down on a glass tabletop or glass shelf or something like that. So anyway, let me set that up. All right, now this is a little tricky because this is not straight clear glass, and the feet are not straight clear glass, which means we've got to bounce that light around and somehow have enough UV light get to the glue and cure up the joint. I like these hemispheres. They've got kind of a chrome look to them. I like that. Okay. Okay. They've all began to stick. So I'm going to set this down and walk away from it and just let it sort of bake for a while. Alrighty, we're so close to being done I can taste it. So it's going to go like that. Okay. Okay, what? Let's do that a different way. There we go. That's better. So we're going to set that down. Okay, got that more or less where I want it. Well, except for that little touch-up, I think we're done. Let's look at it with the lights. Pretty cool. All right, well that was me building a robot out of glass. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure enjoyed working on it. I love robots, ray guns, spaceships, anything like that. I just really dig it. Anyway, I'm going to do a short video that's going to show a technique or two for treatment of glass. It's going to be short, and I'm also going to include some ideas about what our next project might be. I've got some drawings that I've been looking at for building a flying saucer out of glass, an airplane, can't remember, Cessna airplane out of glass, things like that. So I'm going to put a few of these drawings up and see if y'all have an interest in a particular project, and that may shape which way I go on the next video or the next bigger video. So anyway, thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe, do all the stuff that helps us out, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye. Old man working.